Hi there, my name is Devin Fleming and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to give you the story and the background of how I started over in my 50s. And just to give you a little background, I was the woman that had the big job on Wall Street in New York City for many years. We moved the family to Connecticut, had a beautiful life. Every, Everything looked perfect. I had the beautiful home, the three kids, the husband, skiing trips and beach trips and everything looked great. But my identity had completely become wrapped up in that life that I had. And by the way, bear with me as I build my YouTube channel. I'm very excited about sharing what I've learned with everyone. So I'm still new at this, and I appreciate your patience as I figure out how this goes. So I had the family, I had the life, I had the homes and the cars and everything else, and the identity that went with it. The identity was in reference to the things. So when did everything change? I would say before COVID was when it finally came to a big change. This had been brewing over years, but my husband and I became separated, and I realized that I had to rebuild my life. I mean, it was devastating. We had been married for almost 30 years. The loss of the unit and the emotions that went with that, the grief, the anger, going through the whole process of loss. It felt like I had lost everything and that there was no way that I could ever come back from this. But that's not obviously what happened. Next came my too late moment. I had that moment where I looked up, I was in my mid 50s, and I thought, is it too late for me? Is it too late for me to build a life on my own, to create a an income stream and a business is really what I wanted that would be able to provide for me not only until I retired, but to be able to leave a legacy to my kids. I felt like it was too late. And I had that feeling. And a lot of my friends said, Devin, you're in your mid 50s. It's too late for you to start over. This is this is probably one of the most difficult moments of my story of trying to decide whether I was going to hide under a rock or make something out of my life kind of from scratch. I really started over. I wanted to build something that I owned. I no longer wanted to work for a company as an employee, and I knew that having a business ownership was the only way that I could create something that I actually owned without a cap on my income that could create passive income for me in retirement. So how did that happen? How did I walk through that? What actually happened? So I'm going to talk about what I had to do here in order to get through this place in my life. First of all, I would say it's grit. It's grit. It's taking life one day at a time. I had to process fully. I had to give my time to myself time to process fully the loss of my old life and my old identity. And I just threw myself into personal development. I also have a very strong faith, and so I really threw myself into my faith and scripture. And I'm not talking about going to church. I'm talking about really having a belief that I could overcome this time in my life and that there's a God in heaven that could help me with this. So what did that look like? I had to change my identity. So identity, we behave in life based on our opinion of ourselves. How we see ourselves is how we are going to act in life. And this is very, very important. And I learned this the hard way. So I had to change my identity from someone that, before the identity was based on all the things that I had and the marriage and the cars and the homes to a woman that was overcoming a difficult time in her life. And I had to take responsibility for my life. I had to understand that I couldn't blame, I didn't want to blame anyone for the place that I was in my life. I knew, I'm smart enough to know that a lot of the decisions that I made over time led me to the place where I was in my life. And that if I wanted to change, I'm the only one who can change and take control of my life. So that, letting go of any kind of a victim mentality or blaming others had to leave. And I just kept changing the channel in my head on a daily basis so that I could focus on the things that where I'm going. They say what you focus on grows. So if I was focusing on my problems and what I had just gone through or trying to blame somebody else for my life, then that would grow. So I decided to focus on where I was going and what I could do and how I could overcome this time in my life, and putting one foot in front of the other and just constantly pulling myself up. If I fell down emotionally, physically, whatever, I just got back up. We've heard it said, it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. And so I was really just trying to do the next right thing. And that involved my financial well-being, of finding a business that I could build without a lot of startup capital, that would create high current income that I had control over, and that I could also build a business that would generate passive income. And so that is what I did. I have a background in finance. I started an agency, an insurance and retirement and financial services agency under a larger corporate umbrella. And I did that. I just threw myself into work, into personally developing and growing and having a growth mindset and having a belief in myself and in God that I could do all things one day at a time. And so that is what I did. And it was up and it was down. But I continued to look back at where I had come from to see that I was making progress. And I feel like it's progress, not perfection, that is what we're looking for. If we can just get a little bit better every day, every week, every month, every year. And it took a lot longer for me than I wanted it to take. And I couldn't necessarily see the changes, but those around me could see it. And that's another big thing. Surrounding yourself with those who will lift you up and support your decisions, assuming they're good decisions, and help you get to where you want to go. And that involves sacrifices. That involves not going out and socializing as much, and putting my head down and focusing on my health, and building back every area in my life. And the thing about it is we got into COVID right after that. So I had to find a business. Luckily, I did, that I could do remotely and build my business, and that will generate high income and passive income over time. And that's exactly what I've done. And I'd love to share this business idea with you. But really, there's so many ways to generate income now. And even if you're building a YouTube channel, which I am learning about right now so that I can share this experience and potentially have another stream of income. And that is the new normal, having multiple streams of income, but keeping it simple in the beginning, and generating an income that is not based on a company or an employee. Because I'll just speak about this briefly, but if you're an employee, you are essentially trading time for money. So you agree to work 40 hours per week, and the company agrees to give you a certain amount of money. You are trading time for money. You have no leverage. If you don't work, you don't get paid, unless that is, you have sick days or whatever. And your income is, you have no control over your income. You have no flexibility, you have no control. You certainly have no leverage and no way of building any passive income. And so, because I threw myself into personal development and a growth mindset, I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the #1 personal finance book, that talks about the cash flow quadrant. And the employee quadrant, there's 4 ways to make money, hence quadrant. Okay. The employee quadrant is where you trade time for money. And 85% of all the the people in the US are employees because they think they need the security of the paycheck every Friday. Now, being in my mid 50s, I knew that I did not want to cap my income and I didn't have as much time. So for me, I wanted to go into the business owner quadrant. And the business owner quadrant is where you generate an income based on a system, also known as system-driven income. Think of someone who owns a franchise. They do not have to go into the office every day. Their people are following a system that they had to learn initially. Their people follow the system, they generate the income, and they are creating passive income. So the business owner quadrant is how I learned how to make a living that gave me flexibility. I could determine how much money I wanted to make, and it's putting me on the track of creating my retirement security and protection, which is what I needed to make sure I had. And so again, I would be happy to share that business model, but any kind of an agency model where you are a 1099, a business owner. I happen to be an LLC, but you are in control of your income. The amount of business that you create, the production that you generate is what you get paid on. And you can show others in your agency how to do the same and create passive income off of that. It can be, real estate agency, it can be home healthcare agency, it can be a YouTube channel, anywhere you have any place that you have a system-driven income allows you to build something that you own, and the income is up to you, and the passive income can be generated over time. Okay, so I would say it took me many years. I'm not going to say how many, when I realized that I had crossed over into my new life. And I am not there. I have not arrived. I know that I am always growing and always building, but I also know that I didn't start from scratch. So the experience of rebuilding my life, of learning how to take responsibility and not blame, to throw myself into how I can grow and have a growth mindset, that whole thing, and becoming the best version of myself that I can possibly be was an incredible journey. It was very hard, but it's what built me, and it is what is currently building me. I love the expression formed under pressure. When you think about a diamond, for example, it's a perfect analogy, right? It was sand before, but the sand becomes pressurized, and that's how you create a diamond. It has to go through that pressure to become something new, built on the past. In my case, the experiences, the failures, all of the mistakes, and having an identity based on, excuse me, things rather than my faith, trusting and believing in myself and my God that I can continue to grow for the rest of my life and learn from my mistakes. And so this has been an incredible, incredible journey for me. And I'm really excited about continuing on that journey. And I want to share a lot of these tools that I've spoken about and concepts with you. But I also thought it was important to go back and share the story that of how I rebuilt my life in my 50s. That's a high level view, and we're going to get more granular over time. And feel free to DM me for more information, and I'd love to hear more about your story.